question. What's the difference?
Oh God, we just started, Kate. Go with that straight away.
I'll come back to it.
Yeah.
Okay, I'll ask you something else first. Did you want to be a writer when you were a kid, student?
No, I didn't.
What did you want to be when you grew up?
I just wanted to play.
Okay.
I didn't want to do anything, and I really didn't. I didn't think about it too much. I just wanted to play around, and that was it. Although when I was, I think about 14, 15, I thought I might become a very famous poet. But that was because I'd seen a film from a D.H. Lawrence novel, and I thought that I really, it's a bit like seeing the version of the Gypsy. I remember seeing that. I really wanted to be a gypsy, and not only in that film.
Okay.
And then I thought, oh, maybe it'd be better to try and make films, which is about, was a better way to
So
do it.
you wanted to be a filmmaker at 14, 15. That was already in your head.
Well, I liked films. That's the only thing I liked, really. I liked films and I liked comics. That was it.
But did you do well at school? No, you like films?
Yeah, I did all right. Yeah, I was lazy. I was very lazy. I did all right if I liked it, and if I didn't, I did really badly.
So then what? How does that work then?
Well, how it works is that you don't get to a point where you haven't got any qualifications really.
Yeah.
And I managed to get into a film school, but it was early days. It was like it would have been by the time I went there, 1970 or something.
So directly from school into a film school?
No, before that I was going to be a Benedictine monk, and I went and I worked at, yes.
Really?
Yeah, I did. Did you know this? Did you? And no, I was going to, because I went to work at a school which was run by Benedictine monks, and I thought, and it was in the countryside, and I thought I'd quite like to be a Benedictine monk if I wasn't going to be a gypsy.
Yeah, or a famous poet or
Yeah.
a filmmaker. But did you know what was involved in being a Benedictine monk?
Well, it looked good to me. They did very well. I thought it was, and it was back in the day, so it was quite liberal. And then anyway, and then I thought I must do something. And actually, it was one of the Benedictine monks who said to me, "Well, I thought you wanted to make films." And I said, "Well, I do." He said, "Well, you should go and do that." And it was that simple. I thought, "Oh yeah, I should go and do that." And so I thought I'd better do a course, because I didn't know anyone who made films, and I didn't really know. I knew about watching films, but I didn't know really how they were made. I knew something about photography, and I knew stuff like that, a little bit of that. But and I was excited by photography, but I didn't know how you made a film. And so I went to the Polytechnic of Central London, which is now the University of Westminster, and it was a course which was it was a 3-year course, and he went there and he made films. He shot 16mm and stuff like that.
And did you feel immediately, this is it, I did the right thing over here?
No, I was lazy again. I really enjoyed the filmmaking bit, because we used to get these. You actually shot 16mm film, which was, for me, was amazing, because the only thing I'd used before that was 8mm, and 16 for me was like, it's almost grown up. And you had these Bolex cameras, which are beautiful cameras, clockwork cameras, and we used to shoot that, and you could shoot and shoot and shoot and shoot, and you had exercises, that you were meant to fulfill, briefs and so on, and but you could get round it because of the period. Everything was so liberal, and that was the exciting bit, and that's what I really enjoyed.
Were you writing what you were shooting? Was somebody else writing it?
No, there were no writing lecturers. There was no talk about scripts. You keep a notebook. I kept a scrapbook which had pictures in it, so you had some idea of what you were going to go and shoot. It was the first script I read was called Beaufort's Guns, which Jack Gold made into a film. And I remember reading the script and then going along and seeing the film, and just comparing the two, and just doing that very simple thing. But that was that back then at the college. I didn't have that sort of experience or knowledge.
And you didn't at that point then think that's interesting to me, but still it was just the whole what you were busy shooting.
Yeah, but I think it's when I meet very new students now, they've been encouraged to specialise. They've been encouraged to think very clearly and carefully about their career. They've been encouraged to think about end product all the time. They all, you know, there's a huge amount of pressure, and you know, I come out with sort of, you know, we weren't hippies, but that was the background. And when I say, when I was very young, it was about play. That's what I was best at. That was like, there was no difference in my approach to filmmaking, and I try and hang on to that now. That it gets more difficult. But
I'm just wondering here in the audience whether we have people who are. How many of the people here are filmmakers? Okay, good, quite a lot. How many of you went to film school or studied? Not as many, about half of you. Okay. So that's a common experience. So then what happens? You make loads and loads of films. Did you end up with the equivalent of a showreel? No.
no, because it's before showreels. Didn't have that. And also what I shot and what I made, you wouldn't want to put in a showreel.
I was just going to say, is it one time?
No. I hope it's destroyed somewhere. But no, I came out and then I had to get a job, and so I worked in cutting rooms and sort of post-production places, sound transfer, all of that kind of thing. And I did that for a couple of years, and then a friend of mine got a job at the BBC in the drama department, working for Tony Grisoni, who was just about the best producer who worked at the BBC. And he had this great thing where he would look for when he wanted a runner on a film, because the BBC at that time was an amazing place, BBC drama department. They make films, they shoot mostly on film, sort of 75, 80, 85-minute dramas. And you know, names that you've come across: Ken Loach, cut his teeth there, but also Ken Russell. So they're right across the board. They're very, very interesting people. It's a really amazing training ground. People had a huge amount of freedom. And I got taken on there as a runner, because Tony Garnett used to look for people who weren't in the BBC or connected to the BBC, to try and find people slightly outside all of that. And so I went along there and got this job as a runner, and then worked at the BBC for a couple of years. And I came out of that, and I started working as an assistant director, and did first assistant director, then music videos, then commercials as an AD or production manager.
But still all the time beginning to write, thinking about story, not at all.
No.
So then go on.
Well, then sort of years went by, and I'd been, and I suddenly, what had happened, I was, you know, I'd been around all these different bits of the film business and TV business, and I'd done all these different jobs, but I got to a point where I kind of felt that I sort of lost the joy of it a bit. I think it was around 1982, and I was just earning a buck, and also I don't know, it was something a bit miserable about it all. I was earning money, but I wasn't. It wasn't playful. It wasn't. You know, that's all I was doing. So I checked it all in, and I went and sat down and spent about a year and a half, a bit longer, maybe 2 years even. I was in a very different sort of circumstance by then, and I left London, in fact, and just sat down and wrote stories about that I wanted to see as films. And again, I wasn't thinking about whether I was going to write them, or I just wanted to. That seemed like an easy way, or a way that I could put down on paper, or a way that I could imagine a film.
Right.
That's what it was really about. It was about imagining a film. I didn't have money. I didn't have a crew. I was on the dole. I was occasionally doing music videos where you got paid cash and you could go and have some fun, and then you were back on the dole again. So that's all I was doing, and so I wrote all these things. And I had about 10 of them by the end.
When you say things,
Yeah.
films, TV dramas, shorts, what?
They were a mixture. They were a total mixture, and they didn't have any market in mind. There was one about the painter Stanley Spencer, the English painter Stanley Spencer, and he painted these things called the 8 Beatitudes, and it was so split to 8 parts. I thought that was very clever of me. There was another one about an angel that fell.
And were they written in screenplay format? Were they?
No, there was one that the angel one. No, there was one about the Snow Queen, the Hans Christian Andersen fairy story, and that was just a collage of images cut out of magazines. And then there were others that were written, you know, sort of a kind of prose with little pictures maybe with them. So they're a mixture of things, all sorts of different things. And then after a bit, I started to push those things out. And because I'd been around so long by that time even, I knew who to push them to, because my mate who would have been sweeping the floor in the BFI was now running it. You know, so I thought, I'll go to him, I can get to him. So it's no one, and I was giving these things saying, I really want to make this into a film. And I got a commission. I got commissioned about the one about the angel. And
what form was that? Was that the collage?
no, that wouldn't have run.
Would it be good?
Even then, that wouldn't have gone. But the thing is that no one knew that if I could write or not, because I hadn't written anything, and I didn't know if I could write because I hadn't written a script. I'd written sort of ideas.
So why did they think? Okay.
Because I'd been around.
No,
I wasn't.
It's the other question. Why did they think you should write them and not let's get a writer and you should direct them?
Well, but I think that's to do with the people that I met, as I said, because I'd met so many different people that when I was going into these offices, I wasn't meeting total strangers. I would meet people that I'd known over a period of, 5 years.
So they thought he can't direct.
I don't know what they thought. Really. I think they thought.
It just sounds as though what you were moving towards then was from filmmaking, rather than there wasn't a driving ambition to be a writer or to be a screenwriter or to write screenplays. No. So what went wrong?
What went wrong? When?
Well, because it's almost as though a corner gets turned, and instead of stepping up to being a director or to being a filmmaker, that you go the other way, become a different kind of filmmaker.
Well, I think a mixture of things. I think one back then, although lots of people chortle now, I was quite shy. I know there's one, but I was quite shy, and I was. I mean, the story is, seeing as you're all friends here, I might tell you one. I remember being with Terry Gilliam, and we were working on Fear and Loathing in Las Vegas, and there would be journalists around and stuff, and they'd talk to Terry, of course, and he'd go on for ages, and then now and again he'd say, well, you should speak to Tony, and Tony couldn't say anything, and I couldn't speak, at all. And so I said, I sat down with him once, I said, look, I've got a real problem about this. I can talk to you, and I can talk to you, and I can talk to a producer, it's not a problem. But as soon as it feels a bit public like that, I can't do it. I cannot speak, I can't say anything. And he said, oh, that's just because you think you've got something really important to say. And he said, once you realise you haven't, you'll be all right. And actually, it's worked ever since then.
Okay, so you get the commission to write a script, a film script.
I think there's something else though, because the question was why stick with the writing.
I thought you were avoiding the other thing.
I was, but I decided I shouldn't. I went on a thing called Microwave Film School recently, which if you're lucky enough to get onto, you must go. And she put me through my paces, I couldn't believe. She's so hard. She doesn't look hard, but she is.
I do look hard. I don't know if people I have a reputation to maintain. I don't know if people know what Microwave, the film school at Microwave is a micro-budget feature film making program. The shortlisted filmmakers are all, and Tony, so what he's really telling you is that he's been shortlisted to make a feature, are all put together in a building for a week and work with lots of different film people. I was quite kind to you. I was very kind to you.
So, the other thing about writing a script, which is great, is that it's not... I remember meeting the novelist Peter Ackroyd, and I'd read his biography on Dickens, and I said, I really love that biography on Dickens you wrote. And he said, oh, thank you very much. Actually, I had a meeting in this restaurant. He arrived late with a glass of wine from another restaurant. Anyway, so, and I said, I like the bit in that biography where Dickens' daughter comes in and she's horrified because Dickens is in the middle of acting out some terrible scene, and she's frightened by her father, doing all these different characters, and I said it made me laugh because of course that's what all writers do. And he said, well, I don't. And I said, don't you? He said, no, it's just words. And I realised that of course they're different writers, and you can't actually. I don't want to make this. You can't make this distinction too boldly, but he is very much a novelist, and my interests are screenplay writing. And as far as I'm concerned, I don't think you can. I know that when I write badly, it's because I'm not seeing the film. Literally seeing the film in my head, and you have to visualise it complete with every cut, and every music cue, and the whole bit. And then then what you're writing almost becomes reporting in a way. So it's very much what kids do. Kids play in that way where they believe everything that's going on. It's a real belief. It's real. It's happening, and that's drama, and that's something you can do on your own, and can become screenwriting. You don't need all these people. Don't need this big, all this money and this big setup that you have to make a film. So you're kind of free, and that's always a problem with writing screenplays. There is no reality. And so your first possible question, the difference. One of the things is, and I've done a very little bit of directing, which is short films, but one of the things is that suddenly I'm confronted with reality as a director. Things are pointing in the wrong direction. There are objects like that goes wrong. When it's just me and the computer dreaming it, there is none of that. It's a very different kind of thing. I feel that the bits of directing I've done, which I've really enjoyed, it just seems like using a totally different part of my brain. Really. I mean, an awful lot of it seems to be about managing other people's fears.
Is it going to change? You've only directed your own script.
Yeah.
Do you feel that is that going to change them? Do you feel that you will start writing for constraints? I hope you don't.
No. I think that's a real danger, and I think and I've already done it. I've already been there with that, where maybe you're writing a screenplay and at the beginning it's got a certain freedom and truth to it, and then as you start jumping the hoops to get closer to directing it, you start to change it, and you're changing it in response to what you imagine the reality will be that's waiting for you. You're also changing it because you're rubbing up against an awful lot of people to get there. And it's very hard. It's very hard to keep the purity of the thing you're doing, to keep the honesty of it, or the truth of it. It's all down to the people you try and work with, because they all have an effect, even if you decide you don't want to be affected by what they have. It's like the worst thing is if you're writing something and there's a producer or an executive producer or a director, or these are usually the people that are waiting for you to finish. If they come and they respond to what you've been writing and you're halfway through, it's the most destructive thing, because you either you say, oh God, they said that and they're wrong. I don't, and therefore you've got that little battle. Or else you think, oh, maybe it's quite a good idea, and you've got that,
and you're in love with it.
Yeah.
You want to keep it.
Yeah. It's very tough.
When you go back a bit, when you started to write and you were working with other people directing, how did you manage that process? How did you said you were, as a director, you're aware that there's a struggle to keep the purity, keep the story, keep the truth of it. So how did you manage that as a writer? I think there's a real issue in writing about control, and it's very, very difficult to hand your baby, your vision, over to somebody. So you were you in a position to only work with people who you felt would keep that integrity, or did you sometimes have to fight for it?
Well, I didn't have the experience. I sort of learned as I went along, and still learning. I mean, it's a very complicated thing. You know, one of the beautiful things about filmmaking is that it seems to be about the glue between people. It's about the dynamic between people. It's why it's you know, what starts off as an interesting theory the French went for in the 60s, you know, the auteur theory and all that, and it's now become this kind of thing that American studios trot out, so you know how much faith to put in that. You know, it's always a joke. It's anyone who's been around films, you know, and think about them, know that it's a far more complex business. But what happened with the first thing I got made, first feature I got, was called Queen of Hearts, and that was directed by John O'Neill, and I sort of written the script, you know, really intensely, and I didn't realise how important it was to me, and then I went along to the set when they're shooting, and I couldn't handle seeing. I sound about 12 years old, you know.
You must have been about
No, 38. But anyway, so I went onto the set, and I couldn't handle seeing these characters walking around and being the people that were in it. It was like magic, you know. It was so strange. But the thing about John O'Neill was that his background was BBC script editing. He had lots of background, but that was one of his very strong cards, and so he had a lot of experience working with you know, dodgy writers and so on, and he'd worked with Dennis Potter, you know, so he'd worked with the greatest of them, and so he knew how to get the best out of me, and he knew how to take things from the script that he could do something with. He wasn't, you know, he wasn't someone who would come. There are some mercifully few directors who will read a script and they'll say, you know what? What I love about the script is just this little paragraph here. Just this paragraph. That to me, that's what the film should be. You're thinking, well, you know what? You're so fucking wrong, because there's actually another 120 pages here.
Oh, it's too long.
Yeah. Oh no, that's 90. And so, you know, they'll do that, or they'll say, another favourite one is that, you know, what I think of the script as being a blueprint for the film. That's another one. Another one is...
What they mean is they're going to change it all.
What they mean is that they want control, or they want to be seen to have control, to have sole control. They don't need to worry, because in this country in particular, if you're trying to sell a film, you sell it on a franchise, and one of the easiest franchises you can set up is Film d'Or, the director's film, so it's that simple. Anyway, to go back, John O'Neill. So John knew to do things like ask questions about a script. You know, bad executive producers want to fix it. You go and have a meeting with them, and they say, right, and they start having ideas, and you know that, and they start having ideas in the meeting room just before I've got to go to another meeting. Let me just have one more idea for this script, and then I'll go. Thank you very much. Whereas he knew to ask questions about a script, to see what is there, and the best happens when someone reads a script and tells you something you didn't see, tells you something you've done that you didn't know you've done, because then you feel great, because then then you feel that it's like it's got its own life then, you know. So I had a very easy first ride, and he made a very good film out of it. And yes, we did have arguments.
Fighting for the integrity of the story, fighting for particular
I
scenes.
don't know what we've...
Script, curriculum and film school benefited you in learning to write visually, and perhaps without dialogue so much, and you know, writing the sounds and the visuals as you can see.
I never thought of that, but maybe. I mean, it's...
Oh, yes,
I think, yeah. Thank you. The head of my course is still going strong, actually. He lives around the corner from me. I just go and tell him. It's all his fault. No, maybe that is the case, but I think it's simple, stupid. That how a lot of the best films are really like dirty jokes. They've got that kind of simplicity to them, and I'm not someone who thinks that no, it's nothing to do with dialogue at all, because of course it is. It's hugely to do. But I mean, one thing that did come out of film school very, very strongly, which I'm kind of curious as to what happens now, was that when I was at film school, it was film. So you shot on film. The sound was recorded separately onto mag track, and so the picture and the sound were physically separate right from the beginning, and they were only married when you ran them through a synchronizer or ran them through a steamback or something, and then they could be in or out of sync. So that to me is like a huge tool and something really interesting, something to play with. And whereas if you're shooting digitally, all right, if you're going, if you're making a movie, you're still going to record the sound separately. But we've all got very used to the idea of you point this machine at something, you pull a trigger, and it records sound and picture on one thing, whatever that thing is, because you can't see it. So I think one thing the film school does is literally physically handling that film, seeing those 24 frames, touching them. Even there was an exercise where you drew on it, and you made little animations, stuff like that. And that somehow the physicality of that is very important.
Not only to monopolise, but do you write a lot of sound? Do you write a lot of sound cues?
Yeah, sure. Big time. Big time. I mean, it's like, that the great thing when you start writing a screenplay, it's like you start and it's just blank, and so you can decide then. You can decide, okay, then you hear a sound. What's the sound? It's this one guy coughing and lots of people breathing. And it's and then you're going to see what's the first thing you're going to see. You kind of, but yeah, sounds. I mean, it's very important. All of those things are really important to me writing the script and to me visualising it. But you're not writing the Bible or the Quran. It's not immutable. You produce this stuff, and then it has to develop. It has to develop. That means coming up, against other people, and other people have input, and it's about how that's where it starts to get interesting. Because otherwise, it's not going to be anything. Otherwise, it's just going to be. It's all very well me getting excited about imagining films, but no one else is going to enjoy it.
Can I ask you about that? You've done a lot of work, collaborating very closely with filmmakers who are interested in the process of going from naught to finished, all the way through. You don't tend to work as somebody who picks out an adaptation and writes it all by yourself and then off it goes to look for a director. What's that process like? What's it like working with Gillian? What's it like? How does that work?
Well, him. I mean, you can't give him too much. It doesn't matter. If I say to Gillian, let's just take this Red, that I'm there writing the screenplay. You start to move towards production. There's casting. There's everything. And if you're around, you're part of it. I want to be on the set, and therefore I'm going to be rewriting all the time.
What's that like? Are you rewriting are you spotting things you want to change and just changing the phase, or are people requesting this, that, and the other?
Mixture of things. There's a whole mix of things, and there's things you see, there's you do read-throughs, and you want to go back to. I mean, the trouble is that if given half a chance, I'd be rewriting it forever because the bit that I can always see is the writing, and God, I wish I could do that again. But also, if a director is a little bit bored, it's always dangerous because they want to change something just for fun, just because it's something happening. So.
Do you like that process of collaborating? What does a director bring to it? When you're the writer and you're working with a director, what is it that you want from the director, or what is it that you like to get?
Well, I like the fact that when someone is directing, they are confronted with some very basic things which should have been there in the script, which often have got muddied because I've played too much. There are things like each scene is essentially about one thing. It's because, going back to the film school thing, it's like film works so that you have a shot and then it meaning is in that joy. It's not like theatre, you know. It's the juxtaposition. That's what's exciting about it. And then the scene works to the next scene in the same sort of way. So it's very important for a director to identify what is this one scene essentially about. There could be all sorts of other things in there, but what's its main thing? And so he'll be on the spot. He's got to deal with the actors and everyone else, and try and draw that out of the scene. So that makes me very excited. At one time I wasn't very sure about that, but that's because I was younger and more precious. But
were you precious?
yeah, terrible.
Don't change my baby.
Okay. Bit pathetic.
But so now that process, it sounds very much more active. You're on the set.
Yeah.
That's already different. Do you go into the cutting room?
Cutting room is a sort of chapel. It's a confessional. You know, cutting room is cutting room is like the writer's room in lots of ways. And the director and the editor need to be in there alone, and they need to, I think they need to be able to trust each other, and they need to make their mistakes and experiments and be brave and get lost and be frightened and all of these things, which are the sort of things you do when you're writing, and you know, start finding that film. And what I like to be is when they want to emerge with something they want to show and say, this is where we've got to, I want to be one of those people. There's a whole queue, you know, they're producers, they're executive producers, everyone. But I want to be one of those people as well, and then I want to be part of that discussion. I mean, I'm never going to say, well, one like that in the script. I wouldn't say, not even in that voice, would I say.
It's a question of
Have you ever been surprised by the end result of your request script?
I tell you what the best thing is. I've worked on so many films where I've watched the film and I thought, God, I know what I'll do. I'll lay claim to that. I'll pretend that I wrote that. Actually, that's the director. And I thought, well, that's really good. That is. You know, it's much better than I wrote it. Or a line. You know, an actor will ad-lib a line, and I won't go around telling people that it was mine, but I won't say it wasn't.
Have you ever been horrified?
No, I haven't. I haven't been horrified ever, because the horror sort of builds, and it's to be honest, if it ain't working, if something's not working, I'd go back to the script every time. Doesn't mean that you can't direct something badly. It doesn't mean, but I just think that's where the rocks are.